I had let it get to the point to where there were cash issues. There was, customer complaints. There's all this. And a lot of people would probably say that that's an ego thing, right? Like an owner won't let go. They won't pass on the torch. Like, I think for me, it's like, I don't know that I really believed that, I was really worthy of somebody being able to come in and pass the torch on. And that if I stepped away from that as, just an owner or a CEO.
So some of your doubts and fears are basically thoughts of what other people may think about you if you do this thing that you think is right for you, right? That's why it's so important that you still did it regardless, right? Like, most people do worry about that, but then they don't do anything about it because they're stuck on fear.
Real business owner, real business.
Whatever your situation is currently is not your forever situation.
That's really what real business owners is, man. Like, we don't care where you come from, where are you going?
Our goal and our job is to reduce the mistakes that you have to make or the money that you have to lose.
We created a text hotline just to add value to you guys as listeners. It's 435-515-3577. If you guys have questions, anything to do with your taxes, shoot us a text. You want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be successful, don't give up.
You learn, adjust, and continue to move forward. Welcome back to the Real Business Owners Podcast with myself, Trevor Cowley. As always, Kilo G.
What's up, family? What's up, friends?
Guys, we have a treat for you today, or for us. I don't know. It depends on whether he shows up big time today or not. But we're excited to hang out with him over the next 24 hours. And
wait, this goes for 24 hours?
Yeah, it's a 24-hour episode.
This is a 24-hour episode. It's going to be long-winded.
I don't have my Mountain Dew.
We're going to be recording on the run tomorrow.
Dude, you bet, Get him about 10 more water bottles.
10 more water bottles and a Mountain Dew.
Yeah, and a Mountain Dew.
For real.
A what? Andrew Ammons. We met Andrew in the Arate Syndicate 3 or 4 years ago. We vibe with each other ever since, right? Kind of staying in contact here and there. He came up to come get some on a run tomorrow.
That's right. I'm in it.
In it to win it.
Mm-hmm.
He hit us up and said, "Yo, I want to come to Utah, get a run in with you guys." Initially, it was 30. I don't know. He's talking about some 20 miles or something tomorrow. So
listen, brother,
I don't know whether we're doing 20 or 30. We're just going to kind of vibe it out.
You don't know what I've got.
I want to know what's up your sleeve, bro. So we'll let him know tomorrow. Watch the story. Oh, I guess this ain't even going to come out for like a week or two.
So tomorrow, don't watch the story.
So don't watch the stories tomorrow. It could just be random ass, regular ass stories.
You could have caught this, and it was awesome. And they know before we know, right?
They'll be watching the stories. Tomorrow, and then this episode comes out next Tuesday.
This is like my problem with daylight savings time. I just can't. When time changes and my routine and things like that, I can't get it. So now you're talking about the Instagram story versus this.
Well,
not happening.
I plan on having some fun with you and a lot of misery.
Yeah.
So you really get to know yourself and your homies when you're in a lot of pain and misery together.
That's right.
So me, Kel, and Blue ran 20 miles or so together. What was that, a month and a half ago?
Yeah, probably
something like that. So we'll see how far we can drag.
It was enjoyable, dude. Honestly, I was like, because I hadn't ran over 13 in my training for the marathon, and then Trev was like, let's get. They were actually going 30, and he's like, come up and get 20 or 30, whatever you want. I was like, I can do 20. I got to see what that feels like. But, dude,
you were looking
when I got
good
done,
out
I was
there.
like,
you were looking strong. You had more left.
When I got done, I was like,
so you only ran 20?
I ran 20 with them,
okay.
and I was like, I got the marathon easy. But, dude, for whatever reason, and I did some more runs before the marathon, dude, right at 20 miles on the marathon. I don't know if it's because there's more hills on that course or what. Right. My shit seized up, bro. My freaking camis were like, I was like walking like the Michelin Man or whatever, It's like
waddling,
popping salt pills, and it took me about 2 miles to like loosen them back up and actually finish the last 4.
Yeah, I mean it takes a second.
The last 6 miles were a grind, dude.
Yeah, really,
they were hard.
Yeah.
So
we'll find some grind.
Tomorrow.
This may be a little bit different though. Where I'm running. I'm running in West Texas. That's flat.
Yeah,
we don't. I don't know what we're getting into tomorrow.
There's hills. They don't have eyes, but
there's hills.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's hills.
Bring it.
It'll be fun. It is enjoyable with people, dude. It's just different.
Yeah. So let's dive into business, bro.
Let's do it.
We know we're gonna get some running in, some pain and misery. We'll learn a little bit about ourselves and each other on that run, but let's learn a little bit more about each other right now. Tell them a little bit about what you're into, because, obviously business starts with one thing and then it morphs into the other thing. And then you're like, oh, here's a new opportunity, and the idea really is to be like, okay, cool, I should keep my eyes peeled for new opportunities within inside of this opportunity. But at the same time, not get shiny object syndrome to the point where you take away from your main thing and start going over here and dating
never
this.
done that.
No, never. No entrepreneur that I've ever met has ever done that.
No, I've never planted a seed and then dug it back up.
Yeah,
it's never happened.
Never. So let's go into, first off, the industries that you're involved in, the businesses that you're involved in. What do you do now? And then we'll kind of dive deep and look under the hood a little bit to see if we can find a couple struggles. I know that you're a guy that don't struggle much because you handle your business. But we'll see if we can find one or two.
None.
A couple
it's
lessons.
like every single day. Multiple times a day. So primarily everything that I do now is an offshoot from starting in the service business, and that being contracting. So I shouldn't say services. That's a pretty broad brush to paint things with. I started in actually landscaping, right? Landscape maintenance.
I didn't know that.
Easiest way for me, lowest capital in to buy a truck, a trailer, put some equipment in the back of it, and start mowing yards. I literally did that.
And that was what? 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20,
that was 15 years ago.
15 years ago. How old were you when you started that business?
I started that when I was probably 22. 23.
And that was a transition from what? Were you working as a landscaper
college.
For somebody else?
No. So that's another place where I feel like I honestly maybe had a little bit of disservice I did to myself. So I've never worked for anybody else. And what I mean by that is, like, as I've grown my businesses, I don't understand an employee's mindset. I don't understand a lot of the formalities. There's a disconnect there because for me, it's always been, eat what you kill. You're always on. You're always hunting. You want to work in the trenches with people who are like-minded and are totally sold out to the mission. And so I have a hard time still to this day kind of connecting with people. I've become better, but connecting with people who don't have the same sellout
drive or ambition or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong. Like, that sounds bad. There's nothing wrong with people who aren't that way. What's actually wrong is like I said, me having that disservice I feel like I did to myself by not understanding.
How to communicate with
that's it.
The individuals that are there to help you accomplish your mission and whatever their life mission is, obviously. They're there for a reason, to put a food in their mouth or roof over their head. But, that was something I struggled with early on too, is like, and it got to the point where I would manage people out the door because you would create such high expectations for these individuals, and then you would, freak out because you have an internal bias of what performance looks like.
And you always branded it that they don't care.
Yeah.
Like, for me, it was always, it was never that they didn't understand. It was never a mismatch of values or anything like that. It's like I took it personal. Like, they don't care. They obviously don't care, or they would do what needed to be done. Yeah. Right. But that's really not often the case.
Yeah. They're showing up and doing what they were asked to do,
right?
But they also aren't asked to have an entrepreneur's mind,
right? That's not what they signed up for.
Then they wouldn't be working for you.
And I thought everybody in who was working signed up for that. Yeah, when I was young, when I started.
Yeah, well, that's a hard lesson,
right?
That I think a lot of people in entrepreneurship has had to learn. How do I accomplish the big mission and the big goal with a B and a C player, maybe not an A player, which might be the business owner, right? And everybody has their place and everybody can bring value. It's up to you, the coach or the business owner, to put those individuals in a position to win. And that's something that we're doing and ongoingly doing, is continuing to just analyze an individual and find their strengths and remove some of their weaknesses off of their plate and double and triple down on their strengths and say, okay, now you're in charge of this lane. You're in charge of systems and processes because you're so organized, but let's have this person be the technical person and they can be on the phone with people because maybe you're a little bit more boring and dry on the phone, but you're great at behind the scenes, staying up all night, mapping it out, right? It's up to us to figure out what their strengths are and how it fits with inside of our organization, right?
Which means you got to have a very clear picture of what your organization needs, which is another thing that I missed early on, right?
Yeah. Well, usually you find out through pain points, right?
Sure.
Of, where you're hurting or struggling, you're like, damn, I'm missing something there. And then you find it and try to plug that hole, right?
Yeah. So started out in landscape maintenance, moved into roofing, commercial roofing type work.
So how long were you doing the landscaping?
So yeah, let's back up. So I started the landscape maintenance company. Well, let's go even further back actually. So in college, I started out like the first money I ever really made was selling roofs for my dad. So I was like a roofing salesman, door to door.
Yeah.
Hailstorm hits, you go out, you hustle. You convince somebody that your shingles are better than somebody else's, which is not fucking the truth.
Yeah,
but
same manufacturer.
That's right. That's right. We give certain warranties, and our shingles are kept in a weathered warehouse. When we're all keeping our shingles in the same fucking place. But so I started out doing that, made my first bit of money doing that. Thought that I wanted to get into business with my dad because that seemed like a path worth pursuing. Right.
Yeah.
We've made money in that hailstorm, done all that. Found out quickly, nothing against dad in that scenario, but I was too strong-willed, wanted to do my own thing, and had a vision in a way I wanted to do it. So the quickest, fastest thing I could fall into was landscape maintenance. I mean, like I said, it's a truck trailer, very low capital to get into the start of it. I think that my dad helped me weld the first trailer, put it together, and I was out mowing yards in Lubbock, Texas for the girl I dated, I was mowing their yard, I was mowing my buddy's yards, all that kind of stuff. Started up that business. And over the course of time, 9 years, 10 years, I built that business from a residential landscape maintenance business into a commercial landscape maintenance business, brought on an equity partner who actually got some sweat equity in the business over the course of a vesting period.
Right.
Now we're getting really fast forwarding here. But in 2021, they bought me down, my equity down to a smaller non-voting position, and in which time, as I kind of stepped back from running that business, started a commercial roofing business. So new construction, existing.
And that was when?
That would have been, so it really kind of commingled. 2017, I was still partially operating the landscape business, had brought on that partner.
Yeah.
2017, really started the commercial roofing business. Now, all throughout this, every now and then, I would go hustle roofs, sell roofs. Like if I needed extra cash for myself, my family, or the landscaping company, I'd go sell roofs. So I knew that throughout the whole
Instead of getting
cycle.
a loan, you just go knock a few doors.
See, and that's the thing. I didn't know about loans
and this, that, the other.
I've learned those lessons the hard way.
Build them.
Yeah,
that's what we've done too.
Yeah,
we've never went and took a bank loan out. If
Never.
we couldn't extract cash from a credit card, we just didn't freaking do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I go hustle roofs if I needed that extra money for my family or whatever it would be. Started the commercial roofing company. Ran it for a long time. Started to really understand the politics and the structure behind centrally controlled portfolios of commercial real estate. So that being like a REIT or a property fund. Started understanding all the layers behind that and became super interested in that. And mostly super interested in coming from somebody who was knocking doors, residentially, to later in life knocking doors commercially, so talking to somebody at the senior living facility and trying to find my way, to get into re-roof.
How many people you got to talk to get to the decision maker?
That's right. There's a lot,
Like,
and the people's name who's on the business card or the company name that's on the business card is actually not who owns that real estate, as you guys know. But I didn't know as just a
starting out
contractor. I didn't know that. I was like, gosh, Leanne here, who's the leasing agent, she's a really important person. Come to find out, as a human, she's an important person. But in
not
the grand
on that
scheme,
deal.
That's
not
right.
On that deal
not on
that
that
you're
deal.
trying to make happen.
Right. So, anyways, the commercial roofing business still takes probably 70% of my time. But from that, we've got some offshoot companies that have built some proprietary ways of inspecting and scoring, building portfolios to where we've put ourselves in a position of doing the CapEx budgeting on building envelopes for these centrally controlled portfolios. That, of course, has launched a real estate career, so to speak, where I've been acquiring cash flowing properties, and then also have a real estate development that's going on right now. So a little bit of everything.
That's awesome, man.
That started from landscaping.
I do have a question from the landscaping. So you bring on a minority partner, like minority shares. How does he stack enough cash to buy you down? Does he go get a loan? And is a bank loan easy on stuff like that? Like, because where there's not like it's not like a asset-backed loan, really.
If the business can cash flow the payment is my experience.
Right.
So I brought on, the guy that I brought on actually he was an employee, and he was one of those guys that we clicked. He quickly had leadership capabilities.
He was showing up. He was showing up at a high level every day, and he earned his way into the fact that there was a thought that happened in your mind one day. This guy's an asset.
Well,
how do I keep him?
And that was a thought. Actually, it really didn't play out that way, man. The way it played out was, we built a affinity for each other, a trust. I knew he had my back, period. And there were plenty of people around me who didn't, especially those that said they did, but really didn't. And like, we know those people, right? You see them. Yeah. But it was less a play that I see so many people falling into, maybe that's not the right way to say that, but saying, how do I retain this employee? That wasn't the mindset for me. I had worked that business for a decade, and I can start a fucking fire. Like, I'm a fire starter, and I don't mean that in an arrogant way.
Yeah.
I can start the fire, but if you let me manage something for too long, I'll burn the fucker down too. And so that's where I was with the landscaping business. Like, I was about to burn it down. Yeah. And I looked at him one day and I said, his name's Ben. I said, Ben, I will let this thing die. I am so
You were over it. You're like, fuck
over it.
I don't give a shit. Whatever happens, happens.
I will go do something else because I'm not going to put up with this stuff. And if you
You're
want to take it,
an entrepreneur, bro. You need new and exciting.
Dude. So I was like, if you want this, you can invest 20% in the next 90 days. We hit A, B, and C, and you run it. Yeah. And that's what happened. He ran it successfully for, I would say, probably 3 to 5 years after that conversation. And then it came to the point to where I was holding majority of the business, but he was growing it, and he was working his ass off. Yeah. He was invested in it, and it was just a mutual thing to where it's like, dude, I don't feel good about me owning majority of this business and you doing what you're doing, and I meet with you twice a week.
Yeah.
So that's when the conversation came up. Getting back to your question, we assessed the value of the business. Because we've got so much trust for each other, it wasn't like it was we didn't have to go down that route.
Right.
It wasn't a hard conversation. No. It was just easy and natural because you guys had a trusting relationship, right? Like, how do we get this done to where I still benefit and you do too?
And he gets to take it. Yeah, he gets to go with it. So my experience with it was not to divulge too much information, but basically the bank looked at it from Verde Landscape Companies. The landscape company was essentially the financeable entity that took on the debt, because even after the acquisition, they were able to cash flow it easily. So the bank looked at it and said, this is a good deal. We'll finance
I assume that's how it was. From loans we've gotten and stuff like that, but I've actually never done that. Yeah. So I wanted to know if it was like a major bitch to get done, or if it was like actually pretty easy. Yeah.
And I guess that all depends
I remember like back in the day, we just wanted 40 grand just to see if we could get 40 grand.
They told us no.
And we had
our business cash flow.
It was probably like, what was this? 2013 or some shit. And we were making decent money. The business,
but you couldn't get it.
No, they said no, and we had
it was an SBA loan too.
Really,
and that account that we had with them had like 150 grand in that account, and we were asking for 40,
and they wouldn't give it.
They wouldn't give it.
We just wanted to get a little money to pre-scale some things, some departments.
Yeah, so we're like, we could use our capital in the bank, but like if we can get 40 grand for super cheap, then let's just get 40 grand for super cheap and keep the cash that we have on hand. Just that's one thing that I haven't really met many people like us. Mm-hmm. Not as many people, like business owners, do what we do in terms of the amount of cash that we keep on hand in our businesses.
This is before we were recording, that's another thing I took from a conversation with you.
Huge. Like,
you're a rarity.
That's
like
that. Like, yeah, I mean, I won't divulge how much, but we keep
like
heavy
billions.
Like when we were struck, it starts with a
plural,
B.
Billions.
Like a couple bucks.
That's right.
It starts with a B, a few bucks, but not billions, And so that's where I would give us a lot of credit is our discipline and not taking when we could have made a lot of money way earlier than what we're making right now, but we just delayed gratification probably for another 3, 4, 5 years to the point where we have 7 figures in the bank and our company is strong with we don't need banks anymore because we had that one experience where we tried to get 40 grand. They said, no, it's like, okay, we're going to become our own bank.
That's right.
And just stack cash. We're going to eat shit on our tax return because we get massive K1s, but we know it's going to come back full circle one day. And here we are investing a lot of money back into our business, and it's going to come in handy when we do what we're about to do. But it was just weird.
But if I was going to buy you out right now, like I'd have to go get a fucking loan, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I learned too is just recently with working with Devin, our new CEO, is like, I thought like getting your company evaluated was this like big crazy thing. He was like, oh no, you got to come in and do it for $2,500. There's levels to it.
Yeah.
There's actually like,
Yeah.
there is more like
if somebody's going to
deep dive
acquire
ones
you
that are
or
15,
something like
20
that,
grand.
Well,
Yeah.
an outside party, right?
Yeah,
Like
an outside
somebody-
third party
there'd be
would dig a
more
lot
to it.
deeper and not just look at the surface level numbers.
So when you get ready to sell like either a buyout, that's one thing of a partner that's like just ready to go or do something different, whatever. But then there's like, if you want to actually put your business on the market, you actually need a pretty detailed like report on what your valuation is. And so those are a little bit more expensive. I didn't know. Devin pulled me aside and was like, hey, I got my buddy, so come do it for a couple grand. I was like, yeah, have him do it. I kind of want to know roughly what we're worth, like our company.
Right.
So
maybe, hopefully it just doesn't go to our egos.
yeah. Well, we did a vesting schedule with him too. So I'm like, I want to know what our valuation is because like
Before you set this out.
Yeah. Depending on like JD might want to be like, hey man, like I actually want to take a back seat and sell off more of my shares to more people coming on or whatever. Then I want to share or sell. So I wanted to kind of know what our thing is. But anyway, that's way off topic about talking about you, dude. But I was curious when you talked about that.
Yeah, that's the story.
Yeah, when you're talking about your partner
right.
came and bought you out as a majority partner, I was like, man, I wonder how banks actually
do that with the
what
same
their process
entity,
is,
but two different people that is giving money
Obviously
to
they're gonna
the
look at
other person that
balances
both
and-
own it. Yeah.
Well, and it helped in that scenario that the bank that was doing the deal was Verde's bank.
Yeah.
So like they know the cash flow, they know the business. So it was a lot easier. I mean, honestly, it was easy. It was one of those. I would legitimately say now that the story of Verde is not a Cinderella story. Like it's not like we had challenges that, of course, at the time seemed immense. Right now, it's kind of like laughable. Like I think 31 of those things happened today.
Yeah, exactly.
They like would have ruined your month.
Yeah.
So that's not an easy story, but like that, when you think of starting your own business and you think of generating wealth and that being like further, than just you, that was one of those scenarios because now that business has had the ability to where a guy who came on as an employee now has that ownership, I believe. He's got some profit sharing interest, some agreements going out with his key team. And so it's so
most
cool.
importantly,
cool.
what you got was an individual that was motivated to grow the business when you were no longer motivated to grow the business.
Right.
And the business at that point came first. You're like, okay, what's best for the business, best for you, best for me? Let's resort some things out and let's discuss what we need to do here.
Right.
And I think entrepreneurs need to do a better job in being real with themselves and saying, hey, maybe they are a fire starter and they're good at starting things and getting it to 1 million or 2 million or 3 million. And then at that point, there's certain thresholds that maybe they get frustrated in because maybe they've been doing it too long, so they're getting bored and frustrated, or maybe they just don't know how to overcome a $3 million problem or a $5 million problem, and that's their threshold. So maybe you do need to hand it off to somebody else that has the ability to deal with those problems and scale the business.
Right.
If your whole goal is scaling the business, let's get somebody in that can scale the business if you're no longer the man for the job because your heart's not in it anymore, right? And that's what you did.
Yeah, and it was accidental, right? Like it ended up good, but it wasn't like a methodical thing that I planned out. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. Here's my threshold with the business. It was literally, I was done with it, and I had let it get to the point to where there were cash issues. There was customer complaints. There's all this, and now looking back on that, a lot of people would probably say that that's an ego thing, right? Like an owner won't let go, or they won't pass on the torch. For me, I truly believe, and it's something I still work with today, I think is a self-worth issue. Like I think for me, it's like I don't know that I really believed at 5 years into that business or 8 years into the business that I was really worthy of somebody being able to come in and pass the torch on, and that if I stepped away from that as just an owner or a CEO, like what did that mean? I don't think that I really believed.
Your worth was in doing the work rather than just being an owner. Right. So you took more pride in actually the grind versus building a real business that has the ability to pay you a check without you having to grind.
Right. And what would friends, family, maybe not friends so much, but family and others, think, Andrew's sold his business and he doesn't show up to the office, from 5 a.m. to 5 or 7 p.m. anymore. Like that voice inside your head that's like, bro.
So some of your doubts and fears are basically thoughts of what other people may think about you if you do this thing that you think is right for you, right?
Yeah, I think that everybody goes through
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Absolutely, everybody goes through it. But that's why it's so important that you still did it regardless, right? Like most people do worry about that, but then they don't do anything about it because they're stuck on fear.
And I think I think it's the people around them, and you probably had this conversation a million times. You guys know this as well as I do. It's the people around you that love you the most that make you feel that way. And sometimes I think it's out of your love back for them. Like you don't want to make them feel any certain way. And so you kind of like put a limiter on yourself.
You're committed to the misery because you're committed to not wanting to let other people down, even though it might be a made-up story in your head that you might be letting somebody else down and they might not give a fuck, but you think that they might give a fuck, so you say, oh, shit, well, I'm just not going to do nothing, and now you're paralyzed in fear, right?
Right. So it's similar to a conversation like I just had with the ACR team, literally, I believe it was Friday of last week, where one of them, they were talking to me about my time in the office, and it was a huddle where I was sharing some financial figures, where we're at, where we're going, who needs to do what. And one of the team members, they basically told me, like, you've got to get out of the office. Like, we don't need you here.
Yeah.
And you hear that, and that's easy to take that little snip right there and think like, oh, Andrew's company runs perfectly. He's built something that the people don't need him and all that.
Yeah.
That's not the case. What this person was trying to get across to me was your value to this company is being out, meeting people, bringing deals in, investing in other projects so that opportunities open up for us. I believe her words to me exactly were, we don't need you behind those screens. We'd rather you be up here for 2 hours a day, investing eye to eye directly with us, helping us achieve, than for you to be here 10 hours a day behind that desk in there. And this is just like recently, like you'd think I would have learned my fucking lesson the first time, right?
Entrepreneurs are stubborn people in general. So because of their stubbornness, that's why they become successful, because they're so stubborn that they don't want to quit and give up. I'm doing my fingers. I was going to do like a couple of points, like point 1, 2, 3, 4, So, and now I forgot what I was going to say, but entrepreneurs are stubborn people. So they're so stubborn that they'll see their idea through, regardless of the pain or misery that they have to go through, because they're stubborn. So in that situation, it's an asset to them.
Sure.
But you're also stubborn in some cases to the point where you believe that you can wear all these hats or do all these things, or that you don't have to, you can't let that go or this go or whatever. And then you end up creating more problems for yourself than solving problems.
And for the people around you.
Yeah.
Right. So, when you start getting locked into those things.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Especially when it's this is how I bring value. Right. Like you get the way you bring a value to your organization, the people around you's got to change. Like it evolves, and you got to be ready to evolve with it.
Well, we did breath work one time. We've done breath work a few different times, right? And they have you write down a word or something, right? Like just one intention, right? And I wrote down freedom, right? That was just before we enter into the breath work or whatever. Right. And I go through the breath work, and it says you can't have freedom. And I was like, huh?
What says that?
Like your mind. Like you're going deep into your mind. Your mind says you can't.
It's
can't
kind of
have.
weird, bro.
It's a trick.
Actually, you really do tap into your subconscious.
You tap into your subconscious, and you have conversations with yourself. And it said you cannot have freedom. And I said, why? You have to have control. Control and freedom don't go together.
Right. These are
True
opposing.
freedom is letting go of control and being okay with whatever happens. Right. And so at that point, and then I had another question. Well, why do I have to be in control? And then it said, you have the need to feel needed. So even though you bitch about all the problems, you actually, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you won't give up the things that are creating the problems or delegate that to somebody else, because maybe you love the fact that you're still needed somewhere, even if it's a painful need and they're bringing you problems all the time, but at least you feel valuable as a person that you're solving problems, right? And so it's just this big mind fuck.
So let me ask you this then, like, what would happen if you weren't needed?
That's the thing, right? Then at that point, I would have freedom. But then, have you ever really thought about what you would do with true freedom?
Right.
We all say that we want freedom, but let's just say, for instance, you had it right now and you woke up tomorrow and there was nowhere to go, nothing to, now what?
Right.
Like, and that's even a scary thought by itself, right? Like, now I have to redesign my whole life, and my whole life was designed around business in order to get freedom, and now you're starting to have it, and it's like, do I even want it? You know, like, fuck, why don't we start another business? That's right. You know, or like, shit, this freedom thing, like, it's hard.
This is tough.
Problems are easier than freedom. You
well,
know?
and I asked that question because you were going down that conversation that Trevor had with Trevor.
Yeah.
Right, where it was like you ended up with
one bad motherfucker talking to another bad motherfucker. You
At
know?
that moment, that's exactly what it was, right?
Yeah. So I feel.
Yeah. So it's like, so you're not needed, right? And that comes down to the fundamental, like, why does any human do anything, right? Because you were able to go from freedom, and you're thinking business, to, okay, control, to you identified, well, if I'm in control, then I'm needed, right? And if I'm not needed, then
don't feel valued.
Then what am I? Like, if I'm not needed, I'm not me. And if I'm not me, and if I'm not worthy, you know, I'm not worthy, I'm not loved. So like, we hold on to these things.
We feel valued when other people need us.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? We get our value externally from somebody needing our help.
Well, that's one of the 6 human needs, right? Significance, which we've learned about, right? This is significance, right? So you're getting significance.
So how do you balance it all?
Well, you just, what?
How do you balance it all?
All of what?
All of it all. You know, the fact that you want to stay in control, but yet you want freedom. You want to delegate, but you have a tough time.
But you don't want control, you want significance, right? And so there's some mentors that we've had who have taught us the 6 human needs, and there's some mentors that actually taught our mentors what the 6 human needs were. And so you think about that significance thing, you're always going to get it, but it's a matter of you getting it in a positive and empowering way or a disempowering way, right? And so being in control is getting significance in a way that is not so much empowering forever, right?
Yeah,
so you get significance by giving, right? You get significance by
impacting other people's lives.
Exactly right.
In a positive way, right?
You're going to get significance one way or the other. It's going to either be like the way I did it for years, by me always being right and me always building the systems behind the scene, and, you know, being so important and sophisticated in how I handle, you know, my
nobody can do what I do. This company needs me. Da 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 da. You're welcome for showing up today, people, because this place wouldn't be here.
You don't know how to manage Outlook tasks. You don't,
and then all of a sudden you start stepping back, and your business starts doing better. You're like, oh, damn.
Yeah. Yeah. So the point is, you get significance that way, or you get it by impacting people and helping them win.
Yeah. Right. Let's talk about some of the struggles, right? So we know what you're up to. We know the evolution of some of the things that you've done to get where you are today. You're continuing to challenge yourself. That's why you're up here to run with us.
That's why we're going to run 40 miles tomorrow.
Maybe 80. You know, we'll see where the wind blows. You know,
if it's blowing on our back, we might get 80. If it's blowing up front, we might get 10. You know, so we'll see. We'll see what we're battling against. But you know, that's one thing that I do admire about you, is your constant chase of, you know, the best version of yourself. You're always challenging yourself. You're trying to figure out new diets. You're testing this, testing that. You're testing how many hours of sleep that you can work with or without. And really, that's what entrepreneurship is all about, is more so developing the individual that owns or runs the business than actually developing the business. Because as the business owner develops and gets greater, their perspective gets greater, and then the business by default gets greater, right? Like, it's only as great as the individual that's leading the crusade, right? And so, again, I admire a lot of the things that you're doing and where you're at. But let's again look under the hood and talk about some of the struggles, because, you know, we know that you've been in business with your family. There's been some issues there. I don't know if you and your family are on good terms, or, you know, sometimes
depends on the day.
Yes, yeah. Today, I don't know, you know, so let me see. Yeah.
It's the 1st of November.
Let's see if the text said, fuck you, or, hey, are you coming to Thanksgiving? You know, like, it's one of the two, but
we'll see at Thanksgiving where everything stands this year.
And by the time the show comes out, it could be different. I don't know.
I know there's some family businesses out there that have made it look great, but dude, behind the scenes, it's always hard, bro.
Yeah, it is. It is. You're juggling relationships that are very, very, very personal, and business is already hard enough, let alone juggling a family dynamic with business.
And if you can't, like, here's the thing, like, a business, especially for an owner, is a family member. Like, you've got to be able to be honest with your business, with your organization, with what it needs. And if you have an individual, a family member that's a part of the business that because of stuff that goes way back, you can't be honest with them, then you're doing a disservice to both. Right. And I've been in that seat, and I don't want to jump straight into family, but to jump straight into family.
Yeah.
You brought it up.
You don't want to, but I want you to. Okay. So please do.
So where do you want me to start with that?
No, I just did initially kind of how it came together, and maybe just some of the normal struggles that you would believe anybody that goes into business with their family, even if it ends up being great and wildly successful and they stay together, struggles are struggles are struggles. Whether they stay together or not, there's going to be a lot of struggles that are very similar to anybody that's in business with family members, right? And so I just kind of want to understand.
And at the end of that, where you tell the struggles, like, what did that like solution look like? You know what I mean? Like,
what if there's
the
not
conversations?
yeah, what if there's not one? Maybe, you know what I mean? But here's the thing: is like people listening to this, because there's people, man, we all dabble with our family in business, especially when we're the starters, right? Like you said, I'm a fire starter. It's like, dude, you start shit, you bring in friends, you bring family, very close people. But at the end of the day, what can you do to prevent, for someone listening, those resentments from festering and letting them go that far? Because I'm guilty, dude. Like, I let resentments fester way too far.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, you know, some people need to hear that, you know, in your experience, like not letting that resentment get that far.
Not to put a lot of pressure on you, but you can really impact some lives here. So
let me.
So if you want to think about this for a minute, press pause. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
So here's my experience is I always looked at people who had family businesses from the outside and believed exactly what you just said, Kale, that like these people have figured it out. They don't have these issues.
They're winning on all levels.
They're winning on all levels, right?
Yeah.
They get along with each other. There's these brothers that work together. There's all these things. Well, first of all, that's not true.
Yeah.
I've come to find out, even these people that I like idolized and looked up to and thought, oh, they've got these family businesses and they're generational long. The closer you get to it, the more you find out that it's not the case.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I'm still navigating some of that to this day, and people around me know that. Like these are still things that I'm navigating. When you asked me about that, I haven't had like a jolt in the chest or a pit in my stomach until you asked me that question. And I mean that in a way is like, it matters to me. It's something that I'm still navigating, and I don't mind talking about it.
But because you felt that, other people are feeling something similar of the pains or struggles or miseries that you have had to face.
Right.
And so like that's how I know it's a topic that needs to be brought up, and we need to shine some light on it, because like you're a leader, right? Like you put out good content, you put out information, and it's about sharing the struggles, shining light where nobody wants to shine the light, because if they shined light there, then maybe you wouldn't have the perception that every family-owned business is just amazing and it's all fine and dandy. Maybe there's somebody listening about to go into business with their dad or their mom or their brother or their cousin or whatever, and maybe they'll have some things to chew on to really think about prior to going in, or maybe there's some safety nets that they can put in place going in that maybe wouldn't make it so messy if things didn't work out. And maybe you could speak on some of those, right?
Well, and first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it, because it's not something I've talked about a lot. I would say that the deal with family is it's like you have it seems like this great thing, right? Because what were we talking about a minute ago with employees, staff, partners, and all that kind of stuff? You have to navigate this dynamic of trust with people that you don't know. So with family, there's a built-in assumption of trust.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't even got to check anything.
That's right. I don't got to check anything. Like this person, whether it's your brother, your dad, your mom, or whoever, they would kill for me if it came down to it.
They love
right?
me. They've got my back.
Right. And here's the truth. No matter what I talk about as this conversation goes forward, that same fact still holds true for all of my family today.
Yeah.
Like I can tell you this, I don't work with my brother anymore. But if he called me right now and somebody was I'd kill the other person.
Whatever. Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
When his baby was born 3 or 4 months ago, there was a time where the baby was on it was a ventilator, but they were in the
ICU type thing
area,
or whatever. Yeah.
And it's like, and I don't say this to impress or say that I'm a good person, because I'm not. Like I have to work hard to be a good person.
Yeah.
But like on that day when she was in there, I didn't fucking move until I knew everything was okay.
Yeah.
Right. Like that is, even though, and through that, me and my brother were going through some shit. Like at the end of the day,
You showed up when it mattered.
that's right. And I'm not showing up because I have to or anything like that. I'm telling the story to say, no matter what, there's that built-in trust. There's a built-in love. There's a built-in, it's there, right? Regardless. Now, with that built-in trust, that grandfather trust, as you said, also comes a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades of shit.
Yeah.
Right? Decades of, whether it be animosity about shit that happened when you were in middle school, whether it be something that happened, between you and your dad when you were a child, and it was something that was
Some
totally not
subconscious
related
bullshit,
to you.
potentially.
That shit exists.
Yeah.
That exists. And so when you get into business with family, it's so easy to walk into that and assume that you've got this built-in trust, but you got to also realize there's a lot of other things that are coming in the room with you. And so my experience has been, and this is just for me, is that it all depends on you got to look at your relationship pre-business.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't want to get into like giving 1, 2, 3 steps because I haven't conquered it all. But I wish that I would have looked back at like my brother and my relationship as friends, my dad and my relationship as friends. I wish I would have gauged values, core beliefs, like where we were going and where we wanted to go in life. I wish I would have judged those things ahead of time, and not to say that either of their ways are different or wrong, or sorry, that they're wrong, they're just different.
Yeah.
So we go through this evaluation when we're talking about bringing on an employee, right? Or we go through this evaluation, we're talking about bringing on a business partner, but we don't do it with family.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that that's probably where a lot of issues come from. So now going back to my family, you asked me like what are the struggles I've been through with that?
Yeah.
Right. I would say that some of the hardest things that I've gone through is either not having the personal power or not having a conversation up front to be able to have the conversations about the business and what the business needs, and being able to remove, the sibling issues or the stuff from way back that you don't even know that you're operating off of. Right? You don't even know, like when they act a certain way in a meeting.
Yeah.
I can say this experience with my brother. It's like he may, check his phone or do something in the middle of a meeting that really is I brand it as something that he pissed me off from 10 years ago. And that comes out in the middle of a meeting around
PTSD,
business.
bro.
Yeah, that's right.
Post-traumatic
and that's
stress.
real.
Right. Yeah.
That's real.
There are environments, even songs. I was talking about this at one of our masterminds with another one of our members. I was like, bro, even songs have the ability to bring up old nostalgia type feelings from high school or this, that, the other. I said, it can even bring up traumas.
Absolutely
like if you were listening to a song, or you had a song with somebody, but that person, like maybe you had a song with your spouse and that person died. Every time now that song comes on, it can bring up an emotion.
Right.
So what you're saying is they pull out the cell phone, whether you know it or not, there's this emotion that can surface, right?
That triggers hormones, chemicals.
Yes.
That now the game is now it's
correct.
physiology.
Yes, exactly right. So,
and so yeah, let's dig a bit deeper here. So I told you a minute ago that when I started in business, I went and sold roofs for my dad.
Right.
yeah.
Right. And so sold roofs for him, and made my first bit of money. And I don't know if you caught this, but I said there was a moment where I recognized that I wanted to do my own thing.
Yeah.
Right. That was some of that was I just wanted to do my own thing, but some of it was, me and my dad couldn't see eye to eye on whether it be technology, like how we wanted to grow things.
Yeah.
And so by me going and starting, after I sold roofs for him, I kind of did get into a partnership, not a legal partnership or anything, but I started taking on some things, and I was kind of just like following that path that so many people do. Like a dad starts a company or somebody starts a company.
You're going to put your feet in those footprints.
That's right. That's right. And I'd even grown up hearing my dad say, I started this business so that he can come run it.
Boys can come take over,
That's
whatever.
Right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And so I kind of started to follow in those lines, and I quickly discovered that wasn't for me, and it was nothing wrong with my dad. I mean, the fact is, it's almost like his switch from being a 9-to-5 guy who climbed the poles when the electricity went out, sparked such an inspiration in me. A lineman, it sparked such an inspiration for me that where he probably saw his business going, where I saw was exponentially past that. Because he just made that transition, whereas I was so impressioned about, by a kid. It was like this
Big
entrepreneurial
mind,
thing,
yeah.
big mind, you can do these things. These things were instilled in me from birth, right?
You didn't have as much as limiting beliefs.
Exactly.
Right.
So I stepped into that role and I realized, quickly, like this isn't something that I want to do. And I went and started the landscaping business. And little did I know over the course of time, that actually that bothered him. That I even went and started that landscaping business.
You already had your life figured out, bro.
That's right. He had it, and that was the path, and that's where everything was
His
going.
legacy was you and your brother or whoever taking over this thing that he was doing. And if you leave, you're taking everything that he was working for.
Right.
Right.
And so, and that's where I'm going to get to in a second, because that is not the truth. And he knows that now, but at the time I don't think he did. So like I start doing the landscaping stuff, I go down my path. And, I also mentioned to you a second ago that I spent the 9-10 years building that landscaping business. And then I started doing roofing again.
Yeah.
But what I left out of that story, and not intentionally, was I was doing it with my dad. So it was basically his business, but I built a little commercial roofing module inside of that, right? And so it seemed easier to me, and me being the eldest, it was like, I'm going to come in, I'm going to step in, I'm going to help.
I'm going to head this section of the business
because I still wanted my own little thing, right?
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it was,
yeah.
but not quite the courage to just go up and do my own thing. And not because I didn't feel like I had the capabilities of it. It goes to that whole, like, when you're brought up and you're in a family business and you think that that's your responsibility to carry that on. That's kind of what you keep doing. So anyways, I started building that commercial leg of the business, helping with the finances and all that stuff on the residential side. And I did that for probably 2 years and went through a ton of personal pain and anguish, because it was like I was filtering my true opinion about things. You
just weren't being authentic to yourself, and then that turned into misery.
It did. And what it turned into was a day I can still remember where I sat and I looked at the finances, because we couldn't pay the fucking bills. They were eating us alive. This would have been a couple years before I would have met you guys.
So that's probably 2017.
Yeah. And I sat and I looked and I was like, why the fuck does this keep happening, right? And so I sat down, and what I discovered was I believe it was like 80% of the profits were coming from the commercial side of things, right? And I think it was like 90% of those were coming from my sales at that time. And I sat there and I looked at myself and I was like, what are you doing, dude?
Numbers don't lie.
That's right. Check the scoreboard.
Yeah.
But I sat there and this is not a brag. Like this is me putting myself through pain so that I could live inside of some sort of box that was set up and that I felt was right, that was supposed to. So anyways, the point of this is I sat there and I looked at it, and whether it's my fault, somebody else's fault, anybody's fault, it was just the facts, right? So I sit down, and at one point I realized, like, there's got to be a split. We've got to untangle this thing.
And that was roughly around 2019.
That's right. That's about when we met.
So we heard about some of this.
I get that, dude. It's like when there's like two things here, because we touched on it a little bit earlier, dude. It's like, we don't like to let people down.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you're
that's the
not
achiever.
giving
That's the
equally, why are we
salesperson.
giving equally? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like if I'm giving and like all this production, and then there's these other entities that aren't, it's like then we're all splitting it evenly, or however it worked down.
Right.
Like we've had some of those tough talks here too, dude. And it's like, it's tough, even in partnerships, not even family. It's like, you still have love for these people, right? And so it's like, but you don't want to let them down, so you stay silent, and then you let it fester.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what I was kind of looking for too when I was like asking the second part of the question is like, like how do you keep from those resentment festering? Because that's always your fault as a business owner. When you're letting resentments fester, like that's your fault, like because you don't want to have a hard conversation, because you don't want to let them down, or you want to avoid confrontation. That could eat you alive.
Or you're just hoping that it fixes itself over a long enough period of time.
You hope that.
Look,
because you don't want to have
the business.
conversation.
The business will end up doing good again, and there'll be enough money to go around, and we'll all sing Kumbaya and live happily ever after, right?
Right.
You're hoping that
So-
shit irons itself out
Yeah.
when it actually gets fucking worse.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
until the point where it's just unbearable and you break. And then in some cases, it actually turns out worse than just having the conversation versus letting it fester. Then you break, have, you know, a negative, super negative blow up or conversation that both parties maybe say or do things that they didn't want to say or do.
So I'm like smiling ear to ear here because I'm sitting here going like, that's exactly where I was. That's what I'd been doing. And even after, so like I keep looking down at my paper, but I basically put it
There's
together.
nothing fucking on the paper, bro.
I know, but I'm drawing
You're
it.
doodling.
And it's,
some people do better. Like when I was on sales pitches all growing up, dude, I'd be like this and I'd just doodle.
but I'm not doodling.
I know, but
I don't even have the pen's not
put
even
the
clicked
pen-
on.
Do something with the damn thing if you're gonna mess with it, you know.
So even after I had set that down and realized, and this is, you know, getting about to the time where I met you guys, realized that, hey, a split's got to occur. There's, and here's the thing, I'm going to go back to that, is that it's just a difference of people, how they operate, what they want, how they want their life to be designed, right? It's
What's
not
right for you might not be right for them.
Absolutely.
So you got to do what's right for you, and they're gonna have to do what's right for them, right?
And so if anything, as I tell this story, I just hope that anybody who's in this situation, about to walk into this situation or on the other end of the situation, by the time we get to the end of the story, is to maybe just take some steps a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Right? Because because here's the thing, I went through a hell of a lot of pain through it. And the most pain that I went through is knowing that it wasn't what was best for everybody or for my family, and continuing to think that everything would just turn out okay. If we made enough top line revenue, if we ignored all the little
fix it
things,
all.
it'll fix it all.
Yeah.
Well, here's what happened in my case. A, money doesn't fix it all. B, the money didn't come in because we were so dysfunctional.
Well, guess what? If there was a fucking shit ton of money, there would have been a ton of money to fight about.
That's
or
right.
Other resentments there.
So you know
it
what?
never fixes it.
In that scenario, thank God.
Yeah,
Thank God that wasn't the
exactly.
case, because
Exactly.
what ended up is that even after I had that realization, I half-assed like kind of these things, like, okay, well, I'm me and my family, we're going to move to Lubbock, and that was a big deal. Like that was me moving away from, you know, where the family was, where we'd started the business, all that kind of stuff. We're going to move, but you know, we'll share some of these expenses. We'll keep the shop here. We'll keep doing this. We'll do that and the other. And dude, I rode that train for 9 months. Like
the train, as in sitting on the top of the fence and not choosing a side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it got to the point to where it was a do or die. Like literally, you start to have these flashes of, I'm not going to be able to provide the life, like just a basic life for my girls if I don't stand up. And it was me. And that's the thing with an entrepreneur. It's you making the decisions as the leader, right? It's not whether it's my dad, my brother, my cousin, my whoever, they're not making the decisions. I'm making the decisions.
What's fucked up is we have to wait till it like absolutely breaks us.
Yeah.
Because we use every excuse in the book to hold on.
Right.
And then like when it's just unbearable and you can't take it anymore.
Yeah, why do you have-
change has to happen.
That's right.
Fuck. You know, like,
Yeah, so-
like we cause our own problems half the time.
But it's like it's a double-edged sword, man, because like not wanting to let people down is also a superpower. It's what pushes you to show up for your team and go out and bring you more business in. And, you know, like, I don't want to let these people down. Like, they've entrusted me to work here and provide for their families.
And through that,
like,
you learn what you're capable of.
You do.
Right? So, like, that's something I'm realizing as you talk. Like, even through those times, is like, I went out and hustled up shit. And so the building envelope consulting thing I was telling you guys about, the proprietary scoring thing, that all came because through those times I was pushing so hard to bring in the revenue to make things okay that I built those relationships. So it's like there's a lot of good in those moments when you're finding what your real limit is.
Dude, every superpower, man, has a negative side to it. You know what I mean?
Even Superman has a fucking kryptonite, dog, that makes him weak, homie.
It's true,
You know what I
This is
mean?
the truth.
Like, our kryptonite is the exact same thing that's also our strength in a lot of cases. It's just, again, you know, I made the story yesterday on our thing about figuring out how to turn off your emotions in business, because we just go numb in business because it's so painful. So it's like, I'm just not going to tap into my emotions because the build is so hard and there's so much misery involved in it. that if you're in tune with your feelings, that you'll probably quit and give up. Any sane person fucking would, right? But when you throw up a wall to your feelings and say, I'm just not gonna fucking feel so that I can survive in business, it's a survival mechanism. That's all it is. The problem is that wall stays up even when we go home, and it's hard to connect with our wife and our children, or the people that we love and that we care about, because we stopped feeling in order to survive in business, to take care of the people that we love. And it's trying to figure out, how do we use emotional logic in our personal lives, but just straight up logic in business, doing the right thing for you, your family, your employees, and the business in general, right?
Yeah. And, I think logic wins the day most of the time. And that's where, you walk through this. I continued to try to make it work by just, selling more, doing whatever, and got all the way to the point to where it was like, something's got to be done. Yeah. So it's like,
that painful conversation,
when
you're in so much personal pain, that painful conversation is now easier to have than living another day as Andrew Ammons in the pain that he's in by not having that conversation.
Yeah. So that goes like, human beings do anything in their life to either avoid pain or gain pleasure, right? One of the two. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's where, hey, this is causing me a little bit of pain to not be my true self, or confront these things with my family, or to have these kind of cash. It's causing me pain, but fuck, it'd be a lot more painful to sit in front of my dad and say, hey, we've got to split everything. You've got to start paying your cell phone bill. You've got to start paying your truck bill. The shop in this town, you've got to start paying for. I'm going to the pain's got to get pretty bad. At least it had to for me to have that exact conversation.
Painful conversation. Yeah.
Right. And so eventually, and I don't know how the hell we got so deep into this, but there's a point at the end of it. Eventually I had to have that conversation. And it was one of the ones to where it absolutely sucked. And on top of that, I had to do it by Zoom, because it was in the middle of COVID.
Oh, no.
So, I'm trucking along, and so I have to have that conversation. And it was one of those deals. My family, we don't communicate. Right, like we don't talk things out. It's like a lot of assumptions are made, and you say something in the conversation, everybody goes home, and then they, with their spouses, kind of decide, like, what did he really mean by that, So we have that conversation, and there was a safety net that was cut with me, even though that whole time I was driving a lot of things. Yeah. So I went straight into business. Right, it's like, okay, here we go. I've done this with the landscaping company. I'm about to do it with this one. So I'm straight business, right? Yeah. And so this opened up a period of my life to where my parents didn't hardly speak to me for almost a year.
Yeah.
So like my dad, who was extremely close to my daughter, he stopped coming around. He stopped coming to where we were. It was something that was very difficult for my wife, not as much for me, not because I don't love my family, but because I was in, survival mode. Like, we're in the middle of COVID.
Emotional wall was put up.
It was up.
We just talked about.
This is black and white.
I don't feel no more.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah. That's right. And so we went through a period of that, and I was pushing my deal. Of course, my dad started doing his deal, and there was a lot of animosity. There wasn't much communication back and forth. I was able to begin to, which what every entrepreneur wants to do, is to come into their own, right? To be able to really run their show the way that they think's best, right, wrong, or indifferent, be able to do their thing.
Right.
So I was able to do that. I got some of this separation. Again, there were a lot of hurt feelings. I had my brother, who was kind of, and not intentionally, but playing both sides. Like he was, he was working for me, but then he was also, staying close and to dad and how everything was going. And it was tough. Like it was tough for a long time. And at one point, once I kind of came through on the other side, and opportunities with the business started picking up, because here's the truth. Like, you're not going to get what you want out of life if you can't be yourself. Yeah. If you're not yourself, you're not being authentic to you. You're not going to attract the people that you need. You're not going to make the deals that you need to make. You're not going to take the risks that you need to. And so once I started doing that, yes, we had plenty of challenges. Don't get me wrong. Like, there was plenty of stuff and continues to be stuff. But I started building more relationships in the town that I was in. I started building more opportunities. He started doing more. So we were doing specifically roofing at the time. Yeah. He started in the small community he lives in, doing more residential remodels and building homes and doing a little bit of roofing here and there. And
went into straight construction mode.
And got full control of his bank accounts because I was managing all of that at that time. And slowly but surely I started picking up tidbits from my brother that, Dad's got 2 or 3 houses he's building right now. He's got these remodels going. He's got all this stuff happening. I was like, man, this is cool. It's great. I'm so glad because I've been carrying, for 9 months, this guilt, even though I know in my mind my dad can take care of himself, but this guilt that like I've done something wrong. Right. And I start to we start talking a little bit more, right? And I'm doing my thing, and we don't really talk about work too much because that would clearly bring up issues, right? It would bring up some PTSD stuff. So, anyways, long story short, we were talking one day on the back porch. I don't remember where we were, and I break into the conversation. I'm asking him about how are things going. I hear you got some remodels going, all this stuff, and he starts telling me a little bit about them, and I can see in him like he's lit up.
He's starting to posture up.
Yes,
and
but he's excited about what he's
life.
doing. There's life
into him when he's speaking now,
and even more life than there was when we were working together. And so, at one point in the conversation, it rolls off his tongue. He says, "I'm doing better than I ever have." Yeah, I mean, and that I have in a long time, as far as the number of jobs and all that kind of stuff. And I remember when he said that, and I was thinking like, wow, that's so all we needed was that little bit of separation, and to realize that just because we're family and just because that was the original plan doesn't mean that we have to be so stubborn to be miserable and run down that road. Absolutely. Together. Yeah. And so that happens, and not a month and a half later, as I've begun to find more relationships and I'm building, more, I talked about residential development and some of the real estate stuff we're doing. I ended up with a couple of partners buying a sizable piece of land in my hometown, and as the developer this go around. And right now, me and my partners are in talks with my dad building 100 homes for us.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
And it's one of those
coming full circle.
Full circle, right? And so the point of that is that we're both going to experience more of what we want in life, more success from being separate in business. But it took a lot of hard conversations and a lot of bullshit to get there.
It reminds me of a lesson I learned in marriage counseling when I had my first failed marriage. And my therapist, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, but dependency breeds hostility. And so if your dad is like, let you kind of like go lead the charge on getting all this business, but then now he's totally unfulfilled because he's dependent on you bringing in the business.
And you know what that was? Yeah.
He doesn't want to be the one that feels dependent on someone else, and you don't want to feel like the dude that everyone's dependent on you not doing their share.
Right.
And so this hostility gets formed, and if you don't become aware of it, you can't have the conversation,
right?
And so shit just festers, and so, but now he's got his own dependency, dude. He's doing his own things. Yep. You've got your own dependency.
Paying his own damn bills. You're no longer monitoring his bank account.
This is true. Which talking about the codependency thing, like that. Think about what that did for him, and for whatever reason there wasn't
feels alive again, man.
There wasn't a good succession plan. Like this is how this is going to work.
So the advice that you would have,
my advice,
just never go into business with family. So episode over.
That's right.
Ammons advice. It's good as gold. Take it to the bank.
Yeah, because I'm not going to go deep into it, but my brother and I don't work together anymore either.
Yeah.
And we're not going to go through that whole story, not because I don't want to, because we'd be here for a minute.
Yeah.
So for me,
we got to get some rest, bro.
That's right. We got some running to do.
Miles to get tomorrow, baby.
So my personal experience, based off of me, is that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Period. It doesn't work.
You can only speak from your perspective.
That's all I can speak from. And here's the thing. I'm a dominant force. And what I've learned about myself, especially when it comes to the family, I'm not a alpha male to where it's like, it's got to be my way.
Yeah.
But we don't operate well in that space where Andrew's got to be the lead. Right. And so for me, it didn't work. But here's what I would say is that you win it if you are in business with family and you're trying to figure out what to do and you think you need out. You went into business with these people because you love them. And what I would challenge a lot of people to consider is maybe the most loving thing to do is to separate. And even though you may think that it's all selfish, you got to look at yourself, and you've got to look at the other party in this situation and say, who's happy? And is there a scenario in which if we went through some temporary pain that each of us could come out the other end happy?
Yeah.
I'd say that number one. I would say number two is do not utilize that built-in trust that you have for your family to be a prerequisite for whether or not they have a skill set to do the job.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I've done that too, to where it's like, because that's a huge thing, right? As business owners, we're constantly wondering like what saber-toothed tiger is going to jump over the fucking rock and just get our the jugular, right? So like,
yeah, I mean, it's gonna happen.
That's
just
right.
Which rockers are gonna fucking come out of today?
So that insecurity, like that brings the need to have people around you trust.
Well, also, I mean, as I listened to it, I was also kind of just thinking, I was like, like in business, just in general, there's already a billion problems, right?
Right.
And so that was just one, and it's like, do I really want to have that conversation and have another problem? And you think that it's going to create more issues. In reality, it's going to iron out the wrinkles and create less problems. Now, does that mean that there's going to be no friction when it happens? Of course, friction has to increase for it to eventually then decrease, right? And so it has to come to a head.
Well, and that brings up another thought. Like maybe point 3. Like, where's my PowerPoint at? Right? Like,
oh no, you can do the fingers like I was doing.
Right,
why are you pointing?
So point 3 is what I said a minute ago. Like, what is the relationship pre-business? And you think about like 2 people that come to mind for me are Andy and Sal Frisella, right?
Yeah.
And what my basic
they've done a great job. It looks like.
But here's my understanding from being near them, listening to them, is that when they were young, when there was a conflict, they duked it out. They had a fight.
Yeah.
Conflict resolved. Next day, go to work.
They've had some of those screaming,
You're right.
Body bumping matches at First Form.
And so,
like it's just part of the process. But that's how they handle their confrontations.
So maybe the point is just being able to handle confrontation, because like I can
Yes.
speak only for myself. With me and my brother, we're still learning how to handle conflict.
Yeah.
We weren't 7 years old, 8 years old, 12 years old, whatever. Hey, boys, get out there, kick each other's ass, and they're going to show up tomorrow morning and get back to whatever the family mission is.
Yeah.
If you've got that in your life, I feel like you've got a better chance.
So if you're going to go in business with your family, put it in the operating agreement that if there's a disagreement, you walk outside and fuck each other up.
Yes, and have the capital for a boxing ring.
Yes.
Like let's
enter, but add in on the loan. Since we were talking about loans earlier, if you're getting a loan for the business, add in the boxing ring.
Yes, you got to have it. Yeah. Did you really just make the better part of this conversation about family business?
Yeah, pretty much, bro. And it was, I thought, really, really fucking good.
Dude, it was such
an
a
important
great topic.
topic.
It is.
I literally think we created a new niche, bro. A new niche.
Niche?
Is it niche or niche?
Adam Niche? Hey, bro,
here's
we're
the
thinking
thing.
about you, bro.
There's family therapists, but there's not family business therapists, bro.
Right,
You could
there's
head that up, dude.
you know
You've
what?
been through.
So
Maybe there is actually.
Hold
I've just never seen it.
that's right. I'm going into business.
Like, hey, man, between us, we've gone through all this shit, and we're going to counsel you together today. No,
Have you guys
Dude,
fought
it's
yet?
such a huge
counseling.
thing, though, bro. Like, I tried to do business with my family, and I know people talk to us all the time about some of these struggles.
Yeah.
So I think it was a really valuable conversation today. So.
Dude, if people want to just link up with you, if they have questions about it, maybe they're going through something and it's very specific and they value your advice or your opinion or perspective, and they want to reach out to you about anything that was said on today's podcast, where do they reach out to you?
I'd say easiest.
What's your
is
cell phone?
Probably.
So social date of birth,
social
and your
else do you
cell.
need?
We talked about trusting family.
Yeah.
You don't
So
trust us, bro?
we're taking all the
And our
trust out of the
listeners? How dare
equation
you?
here. I would say probably easiest is Instagram. At Andrew C. Ammons. You can go to andrewammons.com as well. It's got all my social handles and all that kind of stuff on it. And mostly I focus on Instagram because it's easy for me.
Yeah.
I've
You're one platform man.
dude.
You can't date multiple platforms at a time.
I lived the life a while back with a multiple platform.
Well,
trying to
there's
keep all this
social
shit
media
going,
polygamy is what they call it. There's like 7 different platforms, and you're married to all of them. Polygamy means you have multiple wives.
I see. No.
So you got multiple platforms. You're
Instagram
one platform man.
is easy.
Yeah. So, bro, we appreciate you coming up
thanks.
and first off getting the show in. and getting some miles in with us
We're gonna get
tomorrow.
it tomorrow.
We'll see how that goes. We hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I thought it was a fucking
enjoyed
banger,
it.
bro. I thought there was a lot of great talking points and a ton of value, which means you, the listener, is now it's time for you to share the show with people that you love and care about. And if you're in a business partnership with your family, share this, especially if there's some resentments festering.
Yeah, just make sure
You know,
my
maybe
family
you can-
doesn't see it.
Yeah. Yeah, Apple, there's only a few people who do not
That's right,
let
can we block
download
those?
this. Anyone with the last name Ammons, you know. So, no, for real, we appreciate you coming out. Hope you guys all enjoyed the show. As always, keep kicking ass. See you next week.